a remote beach, multiple bodies, and over a decade of silence. Why did it take so long to catch the Long Island serial killer? And why were these women ignored? Today on HerCastleGirls, we're talking about the docuseries by Netflix, Gone Girls. That's right, and how it shines a light on the women that were lost and why the system failed them. Hi! I'm Garcia.
I'm Telly.
And we are the HerCastleGirls.
Hi there.
If you like videos about pop culture, true crime, lifestyle, this is the channel for you. You go ahead and hit that subscribe button and join the family.
And for those that already did, welcome to the family. We have a story for you.
We have a story on Her Castle Confidential. This week, we are talking about a case that still has a hold on all of us, and that is the case of the Gilgo Beach murders. You probably know this more as the Long Island serial killer true crime story, where multiple women were found deceased on a beach in Long Island, and it led to over a decade-long chase for someone that went ahead and unalived these unfortunate souls.
It's a heavy case, and there's so many things that, especially as a woman, when you're watching it and you're seeing the type of women that he went after, how long it took for them to finally put up clothes or even, take interest to find somebody. There's a lot of things that we're going to, talk about this evening or this morning, wherever you are on this lovely planet. But we also want to know, after this is all done, make sure you leave your comments below, because we'd like to know what you think of this and if you've watched it already. If you haven't, spoiler alert, kind of. It was a big story in the news, so you may have already heard about it, but it's too big to ignore. We have to talk about it. So, Cara, for those that don't know, because it's possible that maybe you just don't watch the news. We understand it's a lot, it's heavy. For those that don't know, what happened?
There was in 2010, December of 2010, the remains of 4 women that they now call the Gilgo 4 were found within like a quarter mile of each other on Gilgo Beach. And then 6 more sets of remaining people were found in March and April of 2011.
Oh dear.
And the police believe the later set was basically the same person had committed those crimes on those people. Now, the original search was prompted by the disappearance of a young woman named Shannon Gilbert, and that was early May of 2010. And unfortunately, Shannon was outwardly known to society as a prostitute. And unfortunately, we know already, we don't have to get deep into it. We know how society looks at these women and feels that they're less than, they don't have family, no one loves them, no one cares for them. That was so far from the truth when it came to Shannon. Shannon had a loving mother, family, and friends who were diligently searching for her. Now, during this search, while they're searching, they're finding bodies of other women. Oh boy. And it's stretching along miles and miles of this beach. And they find one gentleman at one point who I feel was also, a ex-worker, along with other women, and I think at one point even a child as well. And unfortunately, all of these souls were known to be missing. They all had family again and friends that were looking for them. And this was a huge story, of course, because these people all perished. Investigations were going on, but no one was putting a finger on who suspects were and who did it. At one point, they even find Shannon, unfortunately, deceased, and they almost go on to believe that, perhaps she was running away from a John that had picked her up. She fell into the marsh and she perished by drowning
and
in
losing
shallow
limbs.
Waters.
And losing limbs and her clothes removed.
Listen,
all that happened while she was falling into the water.
So there was a lot of. Some people would probably look at it as cops being, and I hate to say this, but sometimes law enforcement is seen as they just want to close the case.
Yeah, they just want to open close.
It's all about speed.
Yeah, moving on to the next thing.
Right, and not about, well, let's really close this case knowing what happened.
Right.
So a lot of these women that were unfortunately deceased, they all ended up in this situation because a lot of them were either propositioned through a Craigslist ad,
right,
where someone would call them up and say, yeah, come do these services for me and I'll pay you. And of course, usually for the most part, they would go do their thing,
do their job,
get paid, and move on.
Right.
However, unfortunately, for some of these women, they answered the call to the wrong person. That's the background of this story in a short, very short and brief way.
Yes.
But this serial killer was linked to at least 10 to 18 victims. And unfortunately, Shannon Gilbert was one of those women. Many of the women were known as ex-workers who were advertised on Craigslist, and unfortunately, it did shape the way their cases were treated.
These women were, they were ex-workers. So, according to the police, and unfortunately, like you mentioned before, according to society, they just feel, oh, well, no one's going to look for them.
Right.
No one's going to care.
And I think the serial killer...
Yes, I feel he knew that. Definitely. He thought he knew that.
He thought, anyway.
He did.
Police weren't seeking for these women urgently.
Yeah.
And it was very heartbreaking, I think, for many people that knew these women. Yeah. Because there was a lot... Of course, to every human being, there's so much more going on to them...
Than just their job.
They make money.
Exactly. Like, yes, they had their job. To each their own. We're not here to bash anybody. But they had a mother, they had a father, they had children, they had nieces, nephews, they had good friends.
Yes.
And, it's as if you have a friend and they just go missing and you're just gonna fold your arms and say, oh, well, that's just life. No, you want to know what happened to your loved one.
Yeah.
So it's really sad that the police just kind of put them on the back burner.
Yeah.
All because of the type of job that they had. And, they kind of want to throw in there, maybe they went away for a couple of days.
Right.
Maybe they took a trip with one of their Johns to, like, they got flown out, or who knows what they were throwing out there just to make it look like it's not a big deal.
To almost minimize the importance of their lives. Yeah. One of the great things about the Gone Girls documentary that Netflix did that the cops and media didn't do back in 2011, they put the focus on the family. Yes. They interviewed the sisters, the aunts, the mothers, whoever was still with us, still alive, to talk more so about the person. They interviewed them. And I really thought that was refreshing for this documentary because, again, it gave the respect that these women didn't get at the time when these cases first came out.
Yeah. And it's funny, too, the title, Gone Girl. It's kind of like... It's bad because, as we know, the movie Gone Girl with Ben Affleck and I forget her name. Yeah. But, it's about a white woman who's narcissistic, wants attention, fakes her own kidnapping. And then, so that's the movie version of Gone Girl. And then you have the real Gone Girls. They weren't faking anything.
No, they were truly gone, and people were minimizing their existence. Yeah. Minimizing who they were. And in a way, it's almost like we're taking this name, Gone Girl, and we are restoring dignity to the victims through their family, friends, relatives. Yeah. And I think it's kind of refreshing and super powerful that this time was spent on them, not on the person that took their lives.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, a lot of these docuseries, they always focus on the actual murderer or the person that took that life, as opposed to the actual people that are really hurting, the victims' families. So I'm really glad that Netflix did focus on that and left very little for the man that actually committed these crimes.
Yeah. And before we go on, I just want to go ahead and name these women so that we can also say their names and not just give all the attention, of course, to the serial killer himself. So there was Sandra Costilla. There was Maureen Bernard Barnes. There was Melissa Barthelemy. There was Megan Waterman, Amber Lynn Costello. There was Valerie Mack, Melissa Tyler, and there was also a Jane Doe.
There were two Jane Does.
Two Jane Does. Yeah. Jessica Taylor, Karen Vergata, or Jane Doe number 7. Fire Island Jane Doe. Tanya Jackson. Someone called Peaches Jane Doe number 3. Tatiana Dykes. Asian Doe.
There's Baby Doe as well.
And Baby Doe. So these were the people, of course, and Shannon Gilbert. We hope that in who their killer is, they can rest in peace. And we know that this doesn't bring closure to their family, but we do hope that they have peace, they have each other to lean on. And of course, we wish them only the best as they continue. And if you watch the documentary, you'll see they're still out here advocating for better laws, for more respect when it comes to women that are missing, regardless of their past, regardless of what they do for a living.
It is always very sad. And I don't know if it's because we're black women, and in the eyes of society, black women especially, they get a bad rap. And I guess it's because we know what it's like to be in that box.
To be ignored.
Where you're ignored. Like, if a black woman goes missing, you're going to have to, you don't hold your breath for a long time because they're taking their sweet time to break that case. So when you see things like this, as a black woman especially, you do feel like, something has to change.
Yeah.
Let's not just sit here just because of someone's skin tone or just because of someone's job or what they do, they're less than, or they don't deserve to have closure in their life for themselves and for them for their family.
Now that, we've talked about that, we have to talk about how the serial killer was finally found out. Remember, these murders happened...
Like a decade.
A decade of time. And, 2011 is when they started finding these bodies. But the serial killer wasn't actually picked up until 2023.
Imagine. So this man, he was living his life. Going to work.
Completely.
Hang out with friends.
Totally.
Grabbing dinner. Hanging out with his kids. Whatever he was doing, he was doing it. And so under the radar that literally no one, even when he got caught,
a lot of people couldn't believe it.
That's not him. It can't be.
In 2023, Rex Heerman was arrested in connection with several of the murders. He's a married man. He's an architect, and he was living a double life in plain sight. Wow. So he had a business, an architectural business. He wasn't like an actual architect, but he would figure out the deals to have buildings built. Something like that. And he was known for the most part to be a nice guy.
Then his secretary, or I think his assistant, would say many times they'd go out to dinner. She'd be alone with him. He never showed any signs of like...
he wouldn't.
But why would he?
He knows that she's going home to her husband and her children, and if she goes missing, there will be an issue. So of course he treated her
like a normal person.
Right. He was living in a suburban area. He was living in the same home that he grew up in as a child. And this is important to know because this actually fits a profile that, the authorities had built up on him. Another thing that was interesting is that Rex is an extremely tall man. I think he's like 6'5", and he's like a big guy.
He's strapping.
Yes. Yeah. And a lot of people through time, because through this 10 years, people were feeding police what they knew.
Right.
I saw a guy in a truck. He was a really tall dude, and he was leaving this area at this time. But the police never really took heed to all of this evidence that they were getting. And unfortunately, we keep hearing and if you're a fan of true crime, you know this story already.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I told them, and people told them there was this extremely big guy that was leaving the area in this truck, in a navy blue or dark blue truck. And they did absolutely nothing. Because why?
Why would they listen to? What's the point of telling people to come forward with any, evidence or clues or ideas? Only when you give that information and they do nothing with it. So what was the point?
And I feel really bad for these witnesses that were brave enough to come forward and say, hey, you know what, I saw something. Yeah. And then they sat there for 10 years waiting for when the police would actually listen to them. Yeah. When Rex was picked up, people were like, yeah, that's the description I gave you. And Rex was living in the family home that he had grown up in. But here's what's really chilling about it. Okay. He had done no renovations to the home. Absolutely none.
So it's literally like a 1960s, I don't know what year it was, but just to say 1960s, 1950s style house. Yes. Nothing has been done.
Nothing had been done. The house was worn down. For someone that's an architect,
you make decent money. You make good money,
right? And architects usually use their home as a place to experiment. As their
guinea pig, right?
They're going to be painting. They're going to be adding molding. They're going to be maybe moving furniture around. Either way, they're going to be modernizing their home because that's what architects do.
Like there needs to be ahead,
right?
But he's clearly
was stuck
in the past.
In the past. Wow. And it's chilling to know that a man that was known to be nice was actually a killer and, again, living this double life. His wife and kids would go on vacation. They would go see family. And he would jump in his car and drive around town, go on Craigslist, do
all these things.
And people had no idea what he was doing. And he did this for years. And he was even, at some points in the documentary, when you see it, you will see he was actually even calling his victims' family because he would have their cell phones. And he would call them and, taunt them. Yep. Oh yeah, I have her. She's here. You're not going to speak to her again. And it's just pure evil.
Pure evil. It's just crazy. You have the time to not only torture these beautiful people and hurt them to beyond recognition, but now you also have the time to take their cell phone and make calls. What kind of... I don't care to know his upbringing because he's... Right. Who cares? We're not interested in him. This is not about him necessarily. But it's just kind of he's like a case study. It's I'm sure there's enough profilers that are no, we gotta dissect this dude because who does that? Who takes the victim's cell phone and then proceeds to call and taunt?
Evil.
And then still turns around. It's severe Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Turns around and then says, hey, when this family comes back from vacation, hey, how was it? How was, I don't know, Myrtle Beach or how was Florida, wherever they went for their vacation. Yep. And he's just going on as if everything was kosher while they were gone, as if he just went to work, hung out with his friends, did some fishing, whatever he wanted to do. Yep. Totally did, no.
It is a horrible thought.
Pure evil.
When you think of what these poor women went through and the idea that he continued to want to inflict torture on their family members after the fact. Now, Rex was caught
right.
Because at some point he was under surveillance, and the police
Finally.
the police watched his every move.
Mm-hmm.
They watched him eat a slice of pizza, and they watched him discard it into the garbage, and they immediately picked up the pizza crust to get the DNA. And it was the DNA sample that matched what they had collected through their earlier investigation along that beach. And he was finally picked up. And he, I believe, was picked up at his architecture,
I think so, yeah, at his office, yeah.
As well. So he was charged with murder in January of 2024. But again, I'm thinking of the time, between 1993 and 2011, and he only got picked up and charged in 2024.
2024,
like getting
sorry.
charged in 2024.
No, you're right. And has the audacity to plead not guilty. Not only did it take them donkey years to finally catch this madman.
Yeah.
But then he turns around, although they have the DNA, it clearly matches. Like, dude, it's you. He then proceeds to say, I'm not guilty. What?
That's what he said. It was a dark green Chevrolet Avalanche vehicle, had been seen by witnesses.
Oh my goodness.
Again, it's very hard to miss him. He doesn't stand out as your average guy.
No, he doesn't.
He's a giant.
Yeah, exactly. He's a giant. He's bigger. So he's not like some skinny little thing that's like, 5'10" or 5'11". He's a tall, he stands out. You can't miss him. So when people said, and then all of them said the same thing. Really big, strapping guy, really tall, same truck. And everyone's just throwing, it's pretty much like you're throwing, you're throwing stuff at the police, and they're just like, okay.
The reason why I feel that this story is important, is because it can really teach us what we all need to do. And I think now we're in an age now where we're not just taking the media's word for things.
Oh, that
we
part.
are doing our research. We're going online. We're checking out many news outlets.
Yes.
We are asking the opinion of others, and we are keeping stories front and center versus letting them die out and giving that excuse of, well, no one found anything, so the case is closed. That's not happening anymore.
No.
Because of even documentaries like these.
Yes.
So I do appreciate the deep dive that Netflix did on this story, bringing these women's families to light, bringing the movement along that we need to focus on finding people because they have a home.
They have
regardless of what they do for a living, regardless of their skin tone, regardless of their culture, someone out there loves them, and everyone matters to the point where everyone should be looked out for. Everyone should be cared about. And this is a story where it reminds us of that. And it's like, oh, what's the call to action here? The call to action here is to keep these names in the news and not give up. We don't know how many people Rex probably murdered.
Yeah, and it's funny, on the Wikipedia page for the Gilgo murders, it says 11 plus. Because in all honesty, no one really knows. The beach stretches very far. So sadly, they can only go by what they've recovered thus far. Seeing that he's been doing this for a long time, I do feel he's been doing this well before 1993.
I feel that.
And I feel that they should probably search that beach and any other surrounding areas, even search the man's backyard at this point, because who knows. And I hope that this too, I know that it's a long road, I get it, but law enforcement, I don't know what they can do to stop, I don't want to say sitting on things, as I get it, they're doing their job. I know that they have a lot of things on their plate. Got it, roger that. But there's got to be a way to not sit on things and not just close a door in someone's face especially when the person keeps on saying to you over and over again, this is, at least look into this person, at least do this. Like, don't wait 10 years or more to finally take action to something. And also for the people that do see something, they may feel weary of even saying anything.
Right.
Because they're like, what's the point?
Right.
The police won't look into it. Through. Our answer to that is don't stop. Like, no matter how long it takes, do say something.
Say something.
Give your
document
information.
It. Exactly.
Document it.
Because
it's important.
Yes, it did take some time.
It did.
But those witnesses, even though it took a while to get to them, they eventually did.
They did.
And if there was just a let's stop here and close this case,
who knows who much more
dude
people
would still be sitting there
hurting people.
Yeah, sitting in his office, choosing to hurt people that he feels people don't love and care for. So always keep speaking.
Always.
Like you're saying, Kelly, you're so right.
Another part that really struck a chord with us, and I'm sure when people watch the docuseries, I'm sure it'll strike a chord with them too. 2 of the victims' mothers, unfortunately, they didn't live long enough to see justice finally being served. But they fought so long and so hard. And
they worked very hard at keeping the story alive.
They did.
They made sure they showed up everywhere where the police were searching.
They did.
They showed up every time a camera was in front of the police station. They were there.
Yep.
They made a point of keeping the story alive.
That's it. Absolutely.
Even though you didn't know, we don't know them personally.
No.
But I do feel now that I feel like I now know these women. When you first saw the story, when you're younger, you see the story and you're like, oh, now that's horrible. Bodies found at the beach. But
you're not thinking...
It's more than just bodies.
It is. And because you first heard about it on the news, no offense to CNN and Fox News, but they're focusing on the actual killer. Yeah. They're not focusing on the victims.
No.
But when you have something like this, and like you were saying, Car, it's so true. The way how it brings them to the light, you just think of your own family members. Like you think of your own family, your own friends saying, oh my gosh, like, this could have happened to anybody. Make sure to watch it. It's an eye-opening series. It's definitely something you will not regret watching. And I feel when you do watch it, you will love your family a little bit more.
I do agree with that. And, let us know in the comments respectfully. You know, did you see Gone Girls on Netflix? And what struck you the most about this story? We know that true crime, it's an emotional thing. And it can strike a chord. But this is why things like YouTube are so great, because you can have those conversations and really share your thoughts. So we want to hear yours. And of course, if you like content like this, if you like content on pop culture, commentary, go ahead and subscribe to our channel, Her Castle Confidential. We'd love to have you join us.
Thank you so much, everyone. Till next time, everyone.
Bye.